Hello friends, today I'm going to be sharing with you an ornament that I created using the beautiful Christmas Cloche bundle from Concord and Ninth, and it has a special surprise. It's also a customized family photo card as well. Let's take a look at this beautiful Christmas Cloche bundle. You have the Christmas Cloche die set, and that includes absolutely everything you would need to make multiple cloches. So you have the frame, you have the base, you have tree with decorations, multiple trees, you have a bow, you have animals and the word Merry. You also have the Christmas Cloche stamp set, which includes a sentiment and little add-ons to go into the background of your Christmas cloche and create other things as well. So let's get started creating this special ornament. I'm grabbing my Spellbinders Platinum 6 and my Magic Mat from Scrapbook.com. I also have some gold foil cardstock from our friends at Spellbinders, and I'm using magic tape from Scrapbook.com to get this in place. Now, you want to make sure when you place the inside die of the cloche into the outside die of the cloche that it is equal all the way around so that your frame is always the same. And the frame is about 1/8 of an inch, so it's very delicate. Now remember, the center of the cloche you can use to cut out other items or just save that for scraps. I like to save some of those gold pieces for later. Next, I'm using Concord and Ninth sea glass cardstock to cut out the larger cloche die. Now this is going to create the background. And you can see it's so much faster doing this when you do all of your die cutting at once. So just get your die cutting machine out and go to town. Now I'm doing both of the base pieces. There's one that goes all the way to the back and one that kind of highlights the front of the base out of a wood grain pattern paper. And that was an old one that I had from crate paper. Then I cut my snow out of just some plain white cardstock. Juniper from Concord and Ninth is one of my favorite new colors, and so I'm using that to cut out my big Christmas tree there. Next up, I'm going to cut out some ornaments, and I'm using grapefruit cardstock to cut out those baubles there. And I'm also using nectar as well. I really love these different colors, like the pastel peaches, the pastel sea glass. They all make me so pretty. And Stardust is one of my favorite Concord and Ninth colors ever. And so I'm cutting out the garland from Stardust, and I'm doing that 2 different times. So I'm just assembling everything over here on my We Are Memory Keepers glass mat so that I keep it all in place. Now next I'm using the large cloche piece, and I'm running acetate through my machine. Now I don't have a metal shim. If I had a metal shim, it would likely cut straight through this acetate. I've used some really thick acetate here to make sure that it's nice and stable. But instead, I'm going to use my craft knife to cut that out. So essentially the machine just etched it for me. Then I'm cutting out this bow out of the grapefruit cardstock by Concord and Ninth, and that's going to create a really pretty bow for the front of my cloche. Now that I have everything cut, I am going to adhere my frame, that gold frame, to my acetate piece, and I'm using some glue from Scrapbook.com and the fine tip bottle from Gina K Designs. I'm just putting that on some colored cardstock so I can really see it and make sure that that gets lined up. Now remember, I had to trim this using my craft knife, so I'm going to have to clean up the edges of that acetate. This process is always a little bit frustrating with acetate because glue does tend to seep. So make sure you're using a really fine tip bottle, but you can also go in with some glass cleaner and clean that up. So now it's time for me to plan out my cloche, and I'm making sure I get everything lined up here with my wood grain base so that I make sure that it fits with the frame. So I'm just getting this all adhered together. I already adhered my sea glass background to the base, and now I'm adhering the snow. I really love how Concord and Ninth thought about making this look more three-dimensional by adding different heights of things, like 2 pieces for the snow. I'm using an embossing pen from Ranger Ink and their beautiful Bridal Tinsel embossing powder to make that snow really sparkle and shine, and then I'm setting that with a heat tool. It really adds to the beauty of this ornament when it shines in the tree lights. Next, it's time to add my tree, and I'm just doing that with the same adhesive here right in the center of the snow. Next, it's time to decorate this tree, and I'm going to be using some tweezers here from scrapbook.com to adhere the garland on the tree. I'm just going to do a few pieces. I do not want to add too much to this ornament because it is going to have a shaker element, so you really don't want too much going on. I think simple is always best, but I am overlapping the garlands here, so I'm doing 5 in total, and whatever I don't use today I can use on another cloche. Now, because this is quite intricate and delicate, this is definitely one of those gifts that you would create for someone special. This could go on a gift tag. You could send this in an envelope. So it's just a really special way to show someone that you care, like you would do with a card, but then make it very personal as well. So now I'm just using a pick and stick tool here to add my baubles to the tree. And these are in nectar and grapefruit. And I'm making sure that I alternate between small and large, more of the larger ones as you get closer down to the bottom of the tree. I really love these colors all coming together, and they just look so pretty against that background of sea glass too. Okay, so before I move on, I want to adhere my star. We cannot forget that star, and I cut it out of that gold foil paper as well. And I'm going to grab my Wink of Stella pen to add some sparkle to each of those baubles and the garland as well. So I'm marking the center of the top of this tag so that I can, punch a hole there and add some baker's twine. Okay, next, because our frame is so delicate, I am cutting my foam adhesive strips from Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L in half. And those fit perfectly around this frame. Now, because they are so thin, it's quite easy for you to wrap that around the frame. It's quite malleable. And so this is the hardest part, right at the very top. It's all about working it with your thumb and your forefinger to get that in that nice arch at the top there. It just takes a little bit of care and attention to detail to get that in the right spot. But I was really pleased that these strips only needed to be cut in half to create the perfect width for this frame. If you have sheets, then I would say to, trim those with an X-Acto knife into the width that you need for this project. And I only needed a few pieces here. And once I get the bottom edge completed, then I can move on to the next step. And you definitely want to make sure that those touch on the corners so that you don't lose any of your shaker bits. Speaking of shaker bits, I'm using 2 different varieties here. The snowflakes are from Buttons, Galore, and More, and this pack is called December Dream. It also includes some rhinestones, but they're quite large, so I kept it to the snowflakes. And then I'm using Gina K Designs sequins, and these are the micro disco ball sequins, and they really add that perfect warm iridescence there. So I'm just making sure I get this lined up. Make sure that you don't add too much of those sequins and shaker bits, or else it can just crowd that ornament. Less is more in this situation. Before I get this adhered down, I'm just adding some liquid adhesive so I give myself a little bit of time before that's fully adhered and I can get that in exactly the right place on this cloche, because since I've done so much work die cutting and adhering, I want to get this part right. Then I'm going to weigh that down to make sure that that adheres really well. Now I've already printed my family photo and I use that outer cloche die to die cut that out with my Platinum 6 machine, so my photo is all ready to go. Now I'm pulling out the Christmas Cloche stamp set and Gina K Designs amalgam ink so that I get a nice dark black on there to stamp Merry Christmas on that wood grain. And then I'm going to adhere this part to the bottom of the cloche. If you wanted this to stand out even more, you could adhere that with dimensional adhesive. I really love the way this looks with the wood grain pattern and all of those colors at the top. I need to die cut the base for the back side of the ornament, and just in case that cloche isn't exactly the same from left to right, I'm flipping my pattern paper upside down to get the opposite side of the ornament covered. So I have that crepe paper wood grain that I've had for a very long time and I keep every single piece of it. And for this project, it actually came in very, very handy. So I'm just adhering this to the back side. Then I'm going to adhere my photo. Now, one thing that I didn't do was to punch the hole for the photo beforehand, and I didn't punch the hole through the acetate before I adhered it. So I did have to do that with my We Are Memory Keepers tool, but it all worked out. I got it in and it was fine. So be sure that you punch that hole in your acetate before you adhere it. Now my photo is in place and I can add that beautiful frame. This was a second one I cut out of the same gold foil paper from Spellbinders. And I'm just adhering this in place. No acetate needed on this side, so it's a little bit more simple when you get to the back side. I really love the way that our family photo is framed so beautifully in this die set. Now I'm going to add that second piece of wood grain to the top there. You could actually add a few pieces of paper underneath to give it a bit more dimension here too. And if you wanted, you could also write your last name and the year in like a gold pen below it as well. I'm adding a few of the snowflakes directly onto our photo to make that sparkle and shine on the tree as well. So I can't forget about the final little piece of this ornament, which is that cute bow that I cut out of grapefruit cardstock from Concord and 9th. I love the way that this bow is designed to make it look really three-dimensional. It really is sweet. Just make sure before you adhere the ribbon onto the bottom of the bow that whatever is in your cloche doesn't get covered up. So I wanted to make sure the angles of those ribbons were correct before I glued those down. I really am so in love with this ornament. You can create the front only with all of the beautiful dies and stamps in the Christmas Cloche bundle, or you can add a very special touch and create a personalized ornament by adding a photo to the back of the ornament. I just love this project and it looks so pretty on a tree. It's really special for you to share something handmade with someone over the holiday season. It shows them how much you care. Be sure to check out all of the supplies I used linked in the video description below, and I hope you have a very merry holiday season.